Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So today we're going to talk about Seoul Dynasty, one of the favourites to sort of win the league overall at the start of the Overwatch League. And for a number of reasons, they're underperforming, and I think it was really highlighted by the fact that the LA Valiant, another team that had a lot of internal issues and conflicts, managed to 4-0 the full Korean roster. Not to mention that Seoul Dynasty haven't even touched the playoffs for either of the stages that we've seen so far. So we're going to go over why, what their problems are currently, why they are underperforming, and it's worth noting that this video was created and made before their game with San Francisco Shock. They could 4-0 that game against Shock or be 4-0. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised, but this has been a long time coming, and Seoul Dynasty just don't look like the team they should do. But why? Well, there's a few reasons that I want to go over in this video, but if you do have any tidbits yourself, why you think they're underperforming, do let us know in the comments below. The first one isn't much of a problem for this stage at least, because I've already lost a map, but for stage 1 and stage 2, Seoul Dynasty had fairly straightforward run-ups. We all remember the Seoul Dynasty game against Dallas Fuel. Well, they were undefeated up until the end of week 4, where they were actually beaten by the New York Excelsior. That was a 3-2 match, very close, but literally the game after that was going to be London, and Seoul got 4-0'd by them then. Seoul Dynasty then managed to scrape a win against the Houston Outlaws that went to a deciding map, but then they got 3-0'd by Los Angeles Valiant the week after. So that was stage 1. Up until the final few weeks, they were cruising and sailing at the top of the league. But because they had so many stacked teams after one another, they really struggled and then got caught out by bogey teams like the Los Angeles Valiant. Again, Seoul Dynasty went 6-0 at the start of stage 2 and then ran into New York Excelsior and London Spitfire within the same week. Got beaten by them both and then lost to the Houston Outlaws the next week. So it seems that Seoul Dynasty have quite an easy run-in at the start of stages, but not only do they have to prepare for the Korean teams, which they don't really fare well against, but also now and again a Western team catches them out in that kind of area. Granted, Seoul Dynasty have already lost a match in stage 3. But let's say for example they beat Los Angeles Valiant, then they go on to beat San Francisco Shock. Good for all these teams. You get to week 4 and week 5, Seoul Dynasty have to play New York Excelsior at the end of week 4, and in week 5 they have London Spitfire and Houston Outlaws again. So even if they were going 6-0 for this stage, they still have 3 of their bogey teams to face back to back. And even with the changes to stages being the top 4 teams in the stage, it even looks then the Seoul Dynasty may miss out on doing it. But that's more unlucky than anything, and frankly to be the best teams, you need to beat the best teams as well. And it often feels that Seoul Dynasty go into preparing against some of the bigger Korean teams like London and New York, that they don't really account for teams that may surprise them, like Los Angeles Valiant that have done this twice already, and then also Houston Outlaws who have a knack for really upsetting those Korean lineups. But now let's actually look into the game. We've had some gameplay on in the background from the game that they had against Los Angeles Valiant, and honestly some of it is like competitive ranked game. It looks uncoordinated, there's some questionable decisions, but we'll get on to that and why we're seeing them play the way that they are. But the main one of course is that they lack that really strong tracer player. Munchkin is really good. He's certainly up there with some of the best, but he isn't the best. We're seeing the impact that Sabiobi can have in these games. Even Profit for the London Spitfires does a decent job, but it's in combination with Birdring. Between the both of them, they are an exceptional DPS duo. They can effectively play anything. Seoul Dynasty have spent so long trying to work out the best DPS composition that they have. Obviously, Fletter's the first name that's going to be on that list, but Munchkin and Bunny, now Bunny is left, will in contention for those kind of positions and to be the star tracer in their lineup. You even heard rumours of Effect going to Seoul Dynasty, and that would be a big upgrade on their part, because Munchkin really blows hot or cold. Hasn't got quite the consistently good results that we're seeing out of Sabiobi. But that feels almost like a sort of standard argument. I don't necessarily feel that this is a reason, sure, but I don't think this is the sole reason why Seoul are not performing at the level that they should be. Would it do better with Esker? Who knows at this point. But that's also an issue that's sort of come up in the past. But even now, Munchkin's not even being played on Tracer at the moment by Seoul. But we'll get onto that in a second. I think one of the main issues, at least why we saw them lose the other night to Los Angeles Valiant, were the weird roster changes, the players that they're putting in. We see this with the Korean teams a lot, actually, sort of putting out their B teams against some of these like lower tier lineups in the Overwatch League, and kind of saving their squad to play up against at least properly, the New York Excelsior, the London Spitfires of the Overwatch League. Miro, Munchkin, and Fletter are the main starters on the Seoul Dynasty roster, but Zephyr, Guido, and Gambler, who Gambler is new to the team to be fair, were swapped out in favour of Zunba, Toby, and Ryu Jihong. And it's a surprise in itself why you would drop these 3 players. It certainly looks from an outsider perspective, the Seoul Dynasty are just running a weaker roster to give these players some game time, or maybe just to feel that they're better suited to this kind of lineup. However, Sideshow said something that's very interesting, basically highlighting the fact that it doesn't feel like it's hubris. He says that it's an indicator that Seoul's A team were performing just as poorly and they thought the change might work. And even then, you've got the players in your roster like Miro, who didn't really cover himself in glory this game altogether. But I'd say having more of a consistent team is much better than having a team that just isn't powered by some of these star players. You don't want to keep swapping out your roster, because London Spitfire did the same thing and they looked all over the place, not to mention the early days of Dallas Fuel where they swapped out people every single match. And that's one of the main reasons why they're so behind everybody else when it comes to coordination, as well as on top of the other issues that they have in that team. But another thing as well is just the weird strategies that we're seeing. Seoul Dynasty was so keen on running the Sombra in a lot of game modes, even when it wasn't working. I think Numbani certainly needs to be highlighted, where Munchkin was on the Sombra for so long, eventually switched it up to Tracer basically when he had to, because he had to touch the point, and through a brief spell we saw how good Seoul Dynasty could be. The issue is it's very hard to break through that 3rd point on Numbani, and so much time was wasted running this Sombra strategy. I do think Sombra is going to be somewhat of a must pick. We've seen other teams basically run nothing but so far, but if you can't play it and you don't have the coordination to make it work, you shouldn't force yourself to do it. And I mean, I really want to highlight also this gameplay from the Sanctum map of Nepal with Los Angeles Valiant playing Seoul again. Look up the lineup for DPS for Seoul Dynasty. Fletter's on Widowmaker and Munchkin is on the Sombra again. It doesn't match up for the rest of the team. It honestly looks like a kind of matchup that you'd see in a competitive game when it comes to team composition. Obviously, I know that there's a reason why they're running this, but it wasn't paying off, and it seemed that Seoul Dynasty were just really keen to try and make this work, and they really didn't want to switch to your de facto dive compositions. They didn't want to switch to normal things to run. But it's very confusing to watch this team play, especially when you have the star power, and all of these things that I've highlighted lining up really shows that Seoul Dynasty aren't quite sure like which way is up at this point. And finally, I'd say internal issues. Obviously, Seoul Dynasty, much like a lot of teams, are used to winning. And when a team loses matches and hasn't even really sort of touched the highest tier of Overwatch League by missing the playoffs, this is going to cause some problems with teams, conflicts between them, the coaching issues of course, but also what you got to bear in mind as well is this is a full Korean roster living in the US that has been playing an absolute metric ton of Overwatch for the past 4 months. Burnout is going to be a thing for these players, and certainly I could do what they could. I couldn't move to another country where nobody speaks my native language, or at least not by a huge amount, and then expected to play the same game for 4 months and grind it out loads, and when the results are going your way, it builds on top of this. So I'm looking at Seoul Dynasty, I'm very confused about some of the stuff that they're doing, but ultimately I know that this is a challenge that they need to face. When they look good, they look amazing, but man, they do some weird stuff. It's very much like Arsenal in the Premier League as well. When they play good football, they look amazing, one of the best teams in the world. But you have so many confusing issues with the players that they're putting in, the strategies that they're trying to run, and basically a name of a team that is known for playing the top tiers of Overwatch being tarnished and 4-0'd by Los Angeles Valiant, which are a good team, but have been mired by internal issues and roster changes. This was the perfect opportunity to make a result over them count, but they got beaten by a team that's freshly put together. So I hope the Seoul Dynasty can fix this. If you enjoyed this video just looking at the current state of this team, do like and subscribe and all that jazz. I just hope that they can return to their former glory. But thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time.